Hey, everybody. Welcome in. This one is designed to be a big monster chill pill in the form of a video because people are still completely freaking out. They think all is lost. Crypto is dead. We're never going to return. Bull market is over. We're all going to die. Altcoins are going to zero. Everything's going to zero. Well, I'm going to try, as usual, bring some calm to where we are. And again, there's always a chance I'm completely wrong, but everything I do is with data. So I'm going to present a bunch of very interesting data today. This is a Bitcoin story. Normally it's a what happened this week, but again, liquidity is so important. And we see some very interesting things happen. A lot of people are chattering around about it right now as well. So I'm going to take my point of view, my analysis, a brand new mathematical model, and let's predict some prices, not only over the next month, but over the next 3 months as well, which is an extremely aggressive, bold thing to even try, but I don't care. I trust the math and I trust the data. So thank you all for coming. Thank you, Sean Donnelly, T&D, Tesla, etc. This will be a bold one. Let's get into the story. And let me see. I got to make sure my audio is working properly, or am I talking to myself? I forgot to turn on my mic. Yep. Okay, so you should be able to hear me. Let me know if there's a problem, everybody. All right. Yeah, this is called Global M2 Prediction for Bitcoin. And this is not financial advice. And shout out to Stephen Young, who just joined Patreon. Appreciate you all. First of all, Bitcoin versus the last 7 days. All crypto versus Bitcoin the last 7 days, I should say. Everything's kind of red. Tron is up. Leo is up. And the stable coin is flat. So who cares? And in terms of where we are, a lot of people, again, they're very down and depressed. But literally, we haven't moved much in the last 7 days. It's basically down just 2%. Exactly, Ethereum down 2%. Solana down 2%. XRP down 11.69%. Cardano down, I can't read that number. But anyway, let's get into parts of the story. Let's talk about the Bitcoin black hole first, because the amount of money flowing into Bitcoin, and money makes the world go round. So does the ETFs. And thanks again for coming, everybody. We had on Friday, after 10 very positive days and $1.3 billion flew in, we had a negative outflow of 93 million. BlackRock didn't do anything. It's like everybody was asleep over there. And Fidelity dropped 93 million, which is pretty much what they took in the day before. So it was all basically a wash. Anyway, 10 days positive, 1 day negative. That's normal. You don't get positive days all the time. So other people that are coming in to buy some more Bitcoin is Marathon. Marathon just issued another notification that they'll issue up to $2 billion more ATM. $2 billion. These days, it's not really a lot of money, but it actually is. It's enough to buy maybe 25,000 Bitcoin. They have nearly 50,000 already. That could take them to 75,000 Bitcoin, which is a monstrous bag. You know my theories about Marathon yesterday if you're in Patreon. Some very fun ones too. Bitcoin Broccoli, good to see you, buddy. Don't forget, don't we have a special day starting on Monday? And this is flying around the internet from Guy Coram. 20 million Bitcoin will be mined in the next 12 hours. No, it won't. It's fake news. The real amount of supply is 19.842 million Bitcoin, and there's about 311 days left before we get to 20 million. But what is stunning about that, though, is literally, okay, in 300 days, call it towards the end of this year, 20 million Bitcoin will be mined, 5 million have been lost, only 15 million will ever be in existence, and the next million Bitcoin, it's going to take basically 120 years to mine the last million. So we're going to go to next level hardness for Bitcoin, which I find personally very exciting. And if you know numbers on supply and demand, you will too. So that's that piece of FUD killed for the day. And shout out to Raoul, friend of the channel. He talks about his bottoming zone and the global M2 and the 10-week lead. We're going to break down 10-week leads, 12-week leads, all sorts of week leads as to the correlation between global M2 and Bitcoin. Bitcoin's on the right-hand side. Global M2 is on the left. Global M2 has been spiking ever since the beginning of this year, especially around the 10th of January. It's just gone up. 10th, 19th is when it started to kick off. And I'm going to try calculate the impact on Bitcoin. So that's Raoul. And he talks about Julien. Julien prefers a different measure of the time offset. And I think, let me make sure I get this right before I misquote somebody very special. He likes 12 weeks. 12 weeks, 84 days for Julien Bittel, who I think also works at Real Vision as well. So either way, this to this, something's going to kick off soon. Perhaps. We're going to analyze some historical data and try to get to the bottom of that too. So, hope you're all doing well. This is something I saw as well. Shout out to Shadowy Coder in Patreon. He shared this chart, which I was too lazy to dig up myself, but it's just US M2 growth. What do we see here? Well, if you look at where we are, there's a little bit of an exponential line happening again. There was a big spike during 2020, 21, 22. Then there was a tightening in the US, and now it's expanding again. That expanding is probably going to accelerate. But that's just US M2. Let's now look at the rest of the world, because this is where it gets really interesting. Now, first chart we're going to look at, this yellow line is global M2, and the price of Bitcoin is behind. And last time we had a big global M2 pump, and that was approximately October 2024 through, I guess, beginning of December, end of November. Bitcoin shot up 60%. There were other factors in play as well, like the new cabinet in the White House and that type of stuff. But that's a separate issue. We're going to break down the math. But what we have here is this yellow line, that's global M2, and the growth of it. You can see there was a big spike and then a dip, and a big spike again. Okay. Now, this is no offset. This is kind of live data. And a shout out to Colin Talks Crypto as well for other inspiration too of this. And I show a different version in the past, but this is now his version, which is even more precise. But we have the ability now to create an offset to Bitcoin price. So this is no offset. The yellow line goes up, and then there's a lag, I don't know, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, 108 days, 200 days. We shall see. And we'll get to that in a second, exactly what it is. Raoul Pal has 70 days. Julien has 84 days. The question is, what's it going to be? We'll see. When we move it to a 108-day offset, again, shout out to Colin Talks Crypto, the best Bitcoin video I've seen. I don't watch a lot of Bitcoin videos, but this was top notch. He talks about 108-day offset. And on the chart, when you have that offset mapped to Bitcoin price, the correlation is pretty bonkers. It's insane. And now we have a situation where there is a big lag between Bitcoin price. The question is, when are we going to kick off, or are we going to kick off at all? That is the billion-dollar question. This is Colin Talks Crypto again. I think it's the third time I've mentioned him, but he deserves all the praise. He created the optimized correlation for offsets for the Bitcoin price, and he comes up at 108 days. When you use that offset, the correlation is extremely high. Over the next 6 months, it'll be 88.1%. Over the next year, 91.4%. This is, in the finance world, extremely high correlation. Okay? If I do everything based on Pareto efficiency, if you can win in the markets 80% of the time, you are going to crush it. If you can estimate things with 90% correlation and certainty, that's basically, it's almost a sure thing. But let's get back to these numbers, because what I want to do is take this and really think about what exactly could happen next. Because people are losing faith. They're kind of folding up their tents, leaving the beach, going home to a cave for the next 3 years in pure depression and not know what to do next. And that's why I make these videos, to try to help people understand exactly what's happening behind the curtain. This is the key thing. If this chart is correct, if this 108-day delay offset is correct, which the correlation says, yes, 80 to 90% it is, there is an 80% chance lift-off of Bitcoin to map to this global M2 money supply by May, sometime in May 2023. Now, that's about a month to go. Psych Experience, thank you for coming. Thanks once again to the great mods in the chat. Month away from May, not far. April's normally good, but again, the world is afraid of macro. The world is afraid of World War III. The world is afraid of tariffs. There's a lot of dark clouds on the horizon, and that's keeping a lid on things, but it's not keeping a lid on global M2. Therefore, it's eventually going to trickle down. So this video says 80% chance lift-off in May. Now, I decided to take this and add some numbers to make it really interesting, because that's what we do here. So this is the modeling that I did today of the increase in global M2 year to date. It's $4.5 trillion. $4.5 trillion. And then I was thinking, what percentage of that new $4.5 trillion would flow into, guess what? Bitcoin. I know historically it's anywhere from 3 to 5% flows into the S&P 500, stock market, stuff like that. That's a big chunk. Some goes into real estate. Some goes into bonds. Some goes into gold. Goes all over the place. But just assuming how much could go into Bitcoin. And then what is the impact on price? Using my multiplier, which some people don't believe in. I backed into it and I've sandbagged it too. So let's get into that now in a second. If we assume 1% of the new global M2 money supply does go into Bitcoin, that's $4.5 trillion. 1% is 45 billion times 21. Market cap increase is nearly 945 billion. And the current Bitcoin price is 83K, 82K, depending on the minute. This is actually a formula that's actually a little bit laggy. Bitcoins in circulation, 15 million. Remember, 5 million are lost. And current Bitcoin market cap, 1.637 trillion. New Bitcoin price would go to 146,000. If 1% of this new level of assets goes into Bitcoin, I don't believe it's going to be that high. I think it could be more along the lines of half of 1% or a quarter of 1%. Perhaps. It depends on adoption. It depends on nation state game theory. Maybe there's a nation out there that's going to be printing some of their fiat and buying Bitcoin. Then you can throw this table away. It's going to be a lot higher if that's the case, because the first nation state to print money to buy Bitcoin wins. That's it. That's it. GQ Creator, thank you so much. So imagine with just half of 1% of the new global M2 goes into Bitcoin. Reasonable, perhaps. The price would go to 115,000. That would increase the price 37.58%, which a lot of people are groaning. It's like, oh, 115,000. That's no good. I want $1 million. Well, that's not the way markets work. So there's still a lot of people out there predicting $500,000 Bitcoin by the end of the year. I don't believe in that. 250K, I don't believe in that. 120, maybe if things really kick off in game theory, maybe 150K is possible. But my target was always like 119, 120K for the longest time, going back to 2023. We'll see if we get there. Now, final piece. If a quarter of 1% of new global M2 money supply goes into Bitcoin, that would take the price to $99,575. So basically, I believe there is definitely an 80% chance we're going somewhere between 99,000 and 115,000, maybe a lot higher. And I know people hear that and they get kind of sad and depressed, but still, this is sandbagged. Will it happen? Mathematically, yes. Are we done in the bull market? No. How high could we go? Somewhere between 99K and 115K, at least in the next 3 months, if history repeats. Very important. If the correlation holds, if history repeats, the M2 money supply has already increased. It's going to increase more. Okay, so I'm just taking into account the money supply that's already been put out there, taking into account the time lag of 108 days. They are the prices, ladies and gentlemen. But remember, I'll turn off my little camera for this one. There's an 80% chance that this holds. I'll hammer that home again. There's a 20% chance it will not. So this is one of those funny little memes of the, what do they call them? The gentrified society or something. We'll all be happy. But remember the evil guy in the background. I think his name is the Reaper or something. That could happen too. People always say I look like the guy in the back. I don't know where they get that from, but that's the story. I hope you like the video. We shall see where this goes. I want to come and revisit this in 12 weeks, see where we are. Either way, odds are things are going to kick off. If you're packing up your tent, packing up your football, getting off the field, depressed, sad, remember there's an 80% chance we are going higher from here. I forgot to mention one thing, by the way, as well. Let me pull up the chart before I forget. I do want to share one of these guys. This one. Now, the one thing that does look very apparent from here, even though there's a lag, we could have more downside from where we are today. I forgot to mention this. Live TV, as always, me ad-libbing live in front of a screen. There could be another double dip to that 77, 78K mark, which we've been to before. So for us legends, us veterans, us with the scars, we're used to that. We have our seatbelt on, and that could be a good buying opportunity. So we'll see what happens. Thank you, everybody. We are Two Bears, and shout out as well to Bitcoin Broccoli, Psych Experience, and GQ Trader, Clint, Piper, Sean Donnelly, TNT Tesla. Appreciate you all. Hope you enjoy the show. Big Q&A tomorrow. That's what I'm going to go work on now. See you laters. Have a good night, everybody. Bye-bye. Oh, and, I never asked for likes or subscribes or anything like that. I don't care if you're probably clever enough to know to do that anyway. But I will ask this one to help get the word out. If you like it, the people that watch similar content to you will get shown this video, and it'll help them have a little bit of faith. I know a lot of people are losing their faith. The point is, don't. It's always darkest before the dawn. Good night, everybody. Bye-bye.